Welcome to This Got Me Thinking, where clarity comes from conversations and the connections that spark from them. I am your host, Chris LaFay, and today I had the pleasure of chatting with Nishat Jones. And I don't know about you, but I'm not a great planner. And I think Nishat takes the cake on this one because she planned every 5 years where she wanted to be in her career and personal life. And when she was telling me that, I was absolutely blown away. And the thing is, when you plan like that and you have that structure, you have the drive to actually accomplish these things, you do. And she did. She got where she wanted to be even ahead of schedule. But looking back on it, she realized as she was moving around and climbing the ladder that some of the rungs out from underneath were kind of falling out from underneath her. It really wasn't what she expected. I'll let Nishat tell her story. So I want to back up actually a second here. You set multiple goals in 5 year increments. That is something that people talk about it all the time. Like, you read the LinkedIn post or the articles about this, that, and the other. It's like, do your long-term planning and this, and the other. What actually drove you? And I forgot the age. I think you said 20 or 25 years old to actually do that.
I believe it's the background I was raised in. I was raised in a very conservative household, and my dad's been an entrepreneur and always made us high achievers. I've got two older brothers, and all three of us are we're all overachievers. We're very high achievers, and having older brothers that were setting goals and doing well, I feel like I followed suit to a certain degree. But when I was 25, I actually was working as an entrepreneur and doing quite well and paid off all my college debt and loans. And I thought, this is fantastic. I should set some goals for the future, like where I want to be at 30, at 35, at 40. And so I had a really, really great leader manager at that time that helped me through some of that and said, you know what, you're young, but why not shoot for the moon? Go for it. Where do you want to get professionally? I said, I want to be a CMO. When do you want to do that? I said, well, I think it's going to take 15 or 20 years. Okay, so set a goal. So it was very much breaking it down into the very specifics and then setting individual goals for each one of those things. Personally, do you want to have kids? Do you want to get married? What certifications do you want to have? You love traveling. Where do you want to travel? It's just literally, it was the very basic questions that you could boil it down instead of just sitting there thinking, oh my gosh, I have to create SMART goals. I have to have 3 or 5 goals. It was much easier because it was just, Nishat, this is who you are. What is it going to take to get there, right? These are the things that you enjoy doing and you wanted to take it to the next level. So how do you get there?
That leader that you were working with that you mentioned was very pivotal. What about that leader made him or her so pivotal and for lack of better terminology, kind of forced you to change trajectories, or at least put you on that path to change trajectories?
Pretty simple. He asked a lot of questions. He didn't just give me answers and he didn't give me solutions. He actually listened and heard me and then asked questions instead of saying, I think you should do this, or I recommend, or whatever else you would phrase it. But asking those questions and active listening, probably two of the most important things I think as a leader that are critical, but that I learned very early on in my career and very thankful for.
So what did you see that either changed or wasn't what you expected? Because you come in and you're not able to come and obviously you don't want to come in and like blow everything up, right? And make a bazillion changes. But also knowing the person that sits in a CMO seat typically has a 2 to 3 year lifespan on that role, just historically speaking. And so when you got there and you started laying this foundation of relationship building and trust, what happened after that, either good or bad?
the next thing that I started to do was to outline my map, my strategy. So essentially, that was part of my first 90-day plan or 100-day plan. And as I started to put things together and having those conversations and building that plan around that, what would work best for the business, um, I started to see a, a lot of areas where there was acceptance, at least some acceptance of, okay, we have a CMO and we have someone that thinks strategically and is looking to help us grow. And then on the side, I also had a lot of that pushback that where I realized I didn't have the authority to help. And one of the divisions specifically, there were a couple leaders there that just were not willing to work with me at all. They would say one thing and do something different, or they would have conversations that were inappropriate. And so rather than allowing that to get me down, I pivoted and quickly realized I needed to have some quick wins. So rather than trying to build out this strategy and roadmap for the entire year, started enacting my team with let's have some quick wins. Let's do some small things and show where marketing can provide value, that we don't just exist literally to create PowerPoint presentations for you, flyers, and update data for you in HubSpot. Like we can do a lot more. That's not what a strategic marketing team does, much less a chief marketing officer. So the ability to pivot a bit from my original plan and get some of those quick wins helped me a little bit to tread through the first 3 to 6 months, essentially, where it was very difficult and challenging.
Speaking of leadership buy-in, but also your team buy-in, where did you find success quicker? Was and how and why? Was it with your team, or was it with the folks that were either above you or slash on par in alignment with you in the organizational chart?
So with my team, I was able to build trust and rapport very quickly. Fortunately, they saw me as a value add to them because I could really teach them a lot of things that they didn't know. So I had more experience. I had done a lot of things that they hadn't done. I was bringing new ideas. I was bringing new ways of doing things. And it wasn't as tactical as what they were used to. They were very much tactical and they were told, please do this, send out this email, do this LinkedIn post, right? It was all very tactical. And my approach is very strategic. So they really, really liked having someone that came in and actually tried to integrate all the brands, much less all the marketing efforts across the entire organization. So that was an easy, quick win for me. The other, I had alignment with some of the regional presidents. So we were a quite a large executive team. There were actually 14 of us when I first started. And that's because the 5 divisions each had their own presidents. And so they were in charge of sales and commercial activity essentially for each business unit. So I had great rapport with them. It was when you went next level down, essentially. That's where I had a struggle with their direct reports, that they didn't align with what my goals, my mission was at the organization.
And at some point, you pivoted and went away from corporate entirely and started your whole new thing, right? What what prompted that pivot? What was the pivoting point?
So I had had a lot of thoughts about after the first year of being there and actually going through 2 CEOs. So after my first 5 months, where I had started to build a trust, build a rapport, they brought in a new CEO, and that actually made it more challenging because here I was starting all over again, right, with trying to explain marketing from a different perspective because the initial plan that I put together was not what she wanted to implement. And so while she was great to work with, it was basically shuffling and redoing the strategy overall. But a year in, I realized that under her leadership, marketing was still not going to be seen as an asset in the organization. No matter how much I aligned the marketing goals with the business goals and showed that I was actually attributing millions of dollars of revenue on a quarterly basis, that it still wasn't going to be a good fit. And so over the next year, so I was there for approximately 2 years. Had a lot of difficult discussions and made some decisions. I was given the opportunity to be able to take a package because they were eliminating a lot of roles. And so I was given the option of being able to move on and do something else. And so thought about it, and I said, you know what? This is really time for me to take charge and take control of my life. For too long, I've allowed others to take control of my life, whether it's personally or professionally. And that was the perfect pivot for me to literally say, it's time for me to leave my role in corporate America and really do something for myself. And so that's what was the breaking point, honestly, for me in October of 23. So after a couple weeks, I enjoyed some downtime, and then I started building up Stratiate, which is my marketing and brand digital consulting agency that I have now.
Go a little bit deeper there. How was that being as you went up? How were the bottom rungs being removed?
So they were being removed because the things that I believed in were not coming true. And specifically, the things that I thought were core and critical and important, the higher up I went, I realized it's not true, that an organization will say one thing and do something different. And so that really led me to think, is this the right place for me? Because so many organizations will say one thing and do another. And for me, it's not the ideal fit because those are my rungs. That's my core. That's my foundation. If you say one thing and you do something different, it's not a great alignment or fit for me.
So now that you're on this other side, what does the definition of success look like for you now?
Success today is honestly, it's all about the flexibility and the ability to make my own decisions. So when I say flexibility, it means first and foremost, I'm a mom. I'm also married and have an amazing husband. And so having time to spend with my family is very critical and very important to me. That's something I've neglected over the past 25 years. And while I will never get that time back again, I make sure that I am very cognizant of that and don't allow others to dominate my time if it's not necessary.
If you're to take this version of success that of how you define it now, and you were to zoom backwards 20 years, what small thing would you change? Because I also realize that you don't have this definition of success now without all of the learnings that you had throughout this other part of time. So I realize I don't like asking the question, like, what regrets do you have? Because at the end of the day, we learn from the positive and the negative experiences of life, no matter what. And without both sides of that coin, we are not the people that we are today. Is there something that you wish, based on what you know now, that looking back 20 years in the past, you would be like, man, I wish I did this just a little bit differently?
Absolutely. That's a great question, Chris, because I've had a lot of time to reflect and think about what would I have done differently? What would I have changed? And I honestly believe that I would have taken more control of my life in my professional career because instead of chasing that ladder and climbing it endlessly, I would have stopped and thought and paused. This isn't the right fit for me. This is not what I should be doing. And I really need to stop and reflect and rethink based on everything I know about where I'm at in my career today.
The question for today is, when you're leading or mentoring, are you doling out advice or are you asking good questions? And obviously there's a little bit of a middle ground there, don't get me wrong. But advice without context is a very dangerous game to play. Even with context, it's a very dangerous game to play. Because at the end of the day, you probably don't have the full context, especially if you're mentoring somebody that's kind of outside the scope of your day-to-day life. And thinking about what Nishat was talking about in terms of, this leader that she had, that when I asked her what was like the defining factor that made her good or made him good, was the simple fact that he asked questions. He let her process her thoughts out. And that lines up completely with the entire reason why I wanted to start this, is because I wanted people to share their experiences with folks and not dole out advice and talk about their newest book, about their 5-step framework and things like that. I wanted to hear real stories about problems, potential solutions, and what did success look like at the end of the day. And the idea around asking good questions as a mentor or a leader, a lot of this that I learned from was a group that I'm a part of called Entrepreneurs Organization. We have these roundtables, and we meet with the same group of 6 folks, all business owners, every single month for half a day, if not longer. And one of the tenets that we all subscribe to there is that when we're talking about things, we share experiences. We come to with a very Gestalt type mindset where we're not here to dole out advice and be hyper specific on you should do X and Y. So when we're talking about a troubling situation with somebody, everybody else around the table, their thought process goes to, I hear the story that's being told and the problem that's happening right now. What in my career and my life have I experienced something similar? And then that person tells their story of when they experienced something similar, what were they feeling? What did they look to actually resolve the problem with? And then what did success actually look like? And the most interesting thing for me about this mindset shift has been how it levels the playing field. Because there's this intimidation factor, right? And imposter syndrome probably is probably a better word for that, where when you're in a room with other folks that are on paper farther along in life and more successful than you are, it's easy, and I know for me it is, at least, to be intimidated by those folks. But when everybody is around a table and they're telling stories about what they experienced, each individual can resonate with that story and pull takeaways from it. Doesn't matter if you are a junior employee that's just getting their career started or a bazillion-dollar executive who owns 15 different companies. At the end of the day, the story that you tell is your own to tell. It's your testimony of what actually happened. And there's learnings from those stories. And so at the end of the day, I challenge you to go and think about the folks that you lead, the folks that you mentor, and look at that relationship and see, are you sitting there and just doling out advice like a king on high effectively? Or are you sharing your experiences with others? Are you asking good, and also probably some of the best questions are the ones that are simple, like why? It's a wonderful question to ask. Are you leading and guiding folks? That's what Nishat got me thinking.